Hello, and welcome to the Godly Playroom at First United Church in Wetaskiwin, Alberta. My name is Ruth Lummox, and it is my privilege to be in this space and to be able to share stories with you. We are in the Easter season, the time of the color white. Sometimes we mark it with gold. It is a time of such great celebration that we can't keep it in just one Sunday, but it spills over for 6 more weeks after Easter, all the way to Pentecost. Oh, that's a big celebration. But I wonder how you are today. It's been a little bit warmer weather this past week, and so nice to see the sunshine, a little bit of green grass, and the daffodils and crocus and those kinds of plants just starting to poke through some of the snow and ice that are still kicking around in the shadows. I wonder how your Easter celebrations are going. Do you tend to just do a big celebration on the day of and then not much after? I've been trying to pay attention a little more this season. Sometimes I put all my energy into Lent, and I have spiritual practices and things that help me be mindful each week. And then Easter comes and I'm so tired I can't even be bothered. And this year I think it was the other way around. I just never quite caught into Lent. So I'm hoping that some practice of being aware of signs of new life and new beginnings will be part of my Easter practice. I wonder where you come close to God. We hope that's what this time is about. And so you might want to have a candle to light to remind you of God's presence. You might like to pause the video and know that you can do that at any time. But if you want to get some art materials, maybe some crayons or glue and scissors or pen and paper, to do some journaling or some notes or whatever, you might feel moved to respond to today's story. You might also like to get something ready for your feast. Doesn't have to be elaborate. A glass of water, some fruit, crackers, cheese, a muffin. The feast is as much determined by the company we keep, and it is a delight for me to be able to be sharing with you today. So let's just settle into this time and space together. I wonder what you need to help you be ready today. Some people are getting ready for their gardening work. Some people are getting ready for summer jobs. Some people are getting ready for work or school or to start summer activities. Maybe you've got your bike out and got it all tuned up. Maybe you found your soccer ball and your soccer shoes, or if you had shin pads or your baseball glove. We get ready for many things. We don't often take time to get ready to be with God. Fortunately, we don't often have to do that. I mean, God is simply there. But sometimes I think we take that for granted. So let's just take a few deep breaths. Maybe sit down if there are other things that are going on. Put your phone on silent. Gather your household, or let them know that you're going to be worshiping for a while. And take another deep breath. Maybe you've got that comfy place on your couch or in your room. And another deep breath. And let that readiness spread into the smile on your face. Are you ready? Once, there was someone who said such amazing things and did such wonderful things that people began to follow him. And the more they followed him, the more they heard him talk about a kingdom they'd never visited. He told parables. He healed people. And they began to wonder who he was. So one time they just had to ask, "Who are you?" And one time when they asked him that question, he said, "I am the light." We can enjoy the light. Certainly been enjoying the light early in the morning and longer in the evenings. Here is another sign of a new beginning. This candle looks quite brand new. I think it's only been lit once or twice so far. I wonder if you got to watch those stories too. I'm going to put it back here on the shelf though, so we have enough room to tell our story. And you might want to set your candle in a safe place, especially if it has an open flame. You'll still be able to see it there. So let's get ready for this story. I'm going to just move the camera one more position and then I'll be back. You might imagine yourself walking around in the Godly Playroom trying to remember, where does this story belong? And it's often found on the Easter shelves or, the Pentecost shelf. Welcome back. This story happens in the time of the color white, the season of Easter. It's a time of great celebration. And so it isn't just 1 week's worth of stories, but many. And on that first week, we heard that story of the women going to the tomb, expecting to find a body and to prepare it for burial. But when they got there, the stone had been rolled away and the tomb was empty, except for the linen cloth that had covered the body. Many strange and wondrous things happened near that empty tomb on that morning, but Jesus was gone. And Mary, who had come with the other women, and Peter and John, who arrived a little bit later, still experienced Jesus there. And so they were coming to know him in that new way of knowing his presence even in absence. And in that second week of knowing Jesus in a new way, we heard Jackie tell this story about some of Jesus' followers who are on their way to Emmaus from Jerusalem. And as they walked and wondered about the cross and the tomb and what it could all mean, a stranger happened to join them. The stranger talked about amazing things and wonderful things from their scriptures. And when they got to the place where they were staying that night, they asked the stranger to come and eat with them. And when he took the bread and he blessed it and he broke it and shared it with them, they knew it was he. and then he was gone. And so those disciples hurried back to Jerusalem to tell the others that they had also experienced the risen Christ in a new way, in the breaking of the bread. In this third week of Eastertide, we remember a story of the disciples gathered late one evening in a locked room. They were afraid the soldiers were going to come and take them as they had arrested Jesus. They heard a voice say, "Peace be with you." And they looked, and it was he. At first they thought it was a ghost, but then he showed them his wounds, and he talked with them, and he even ate a piece of fish, and he explained the scriptures as he had for those on the way to Emmaus. And then he said, "Peace be with you." And he was gone. Thomas wasn't with them that night, and so the next morning when they began to tell Thomas all the amazing things that had happened, he didn't believe them. "Unless I touch his wounds," Thomas said, "I won't believe." And why wouldn't he have doubts? All of them were stretching to understand Jesus in this new way. About a week later, they were gathered again, and this time Thomas was with them when they heard a voice, "Peace be with you." And they looked, and it was he. And Jesus walked right over to Thomas, and he held out his hand and said, "Touch me." And Thomas fell on his knees and said, "My Lord and my God." Jesus looked at Thomas for a long time. And then he said, "You believe because you have seen." And he looked up and he looked around at the circle of those gathered. And he said, "Blessed are you who have not seen and still believe." And then he was gone. I wonder what item you might find in your home that you would bring to add to this story. I don't know what you'll find or why it will matter, but you will know. You might even want to pause the video while you go and look, or just sit and think about what part of your life might you bring to this story. Perhaps you can imagine being in a godly playroom and do that scan around the room and wonder, so many stories in this room, with stones, with doors that open and close, many stories about travelers and interesting things happening on the way, about bread being broken. We have less stories, though. Sometimes we're not even comfortable saying we have doubts. Or we think it's a bad thing. And yet Thomas simply asked for what the others had already received. And Jesus gives it without judgment. I wonder how your doubt has affected your faith. There are a few more weeks left in Easter, but we won't roll out all of those stories just yet. I'm going to get ready to put this story away. If you need to pause the video while you gather up your art materials for response time, you can do that, and I'll see you back here shortly. The disciples who were coming to know Jesus even in their doubt. In the breaking of the bread. To know His presence in absence. Oh, and our time is stretching out even further every week. So much Easter. So much celebration. I'm going to get my art materials ready. Welcome back. I wonder what you found to work with. I decided, because I'm not going to go outside and play in the mud, which is kind of sometimes what feeling doubtful is like, I might create some a little bit here. So I found some paints, some watercolor crayons, and I have some water and some paintbrushes and paper. And I'm just going to start by putting lots of water on this page. Sometimes when I'm feeling in that kind of either doubting myself or doubting others or wondering about my faith and whether God's at work or not, it feels like almost like drowning maybe. Just so much stuff going on. Just gets messy. And I can't always see my way forward. Sometimes it even feels like I'm all by myself. But actually, not really alone. Sometimes I let that fear take over, though. I forget. Maybe like those disciples, right? Who locked themselves away. Like being in the godly playroom. It's in a basement. I can't tell what the weather's doing or what the sun's like. And I'm glad I'm surrounded by beautiful things. But if we shut the lights off, it would feel very dark and alone. And sometimes we're like that with our faith. Or a situation maybe that's going on in our life, we get just all caught up in it. We can't seem to see our way forward. And we forget to let the light in, to look for anything new. It takes all our energy, just kind of get drained. Sometimes you stew about something. I don't know about you, but sometimes I get some pretty not nice things happening in my head. Things I say to myself, or the things I do. The negative self-talk, they call it. And it helps me sometimes to remember, how does God talk to me? Or how do I imagine God talking to other people? And then to say that to myself as well. Just about good mental health, isn't it? Sometimes it's as light as angel wings touching us. Then something happens and I just kind of go down that rabbit hole again. And still God is there. And there are new possibilities. And sometimes you need to be a little bit crocus-minded. Think about all those things that are starting to grow, even under the snow and the ice when we can't see them anymore. Doubt pushes me to dig a little more deeply. To remember that I'm rooted in the love of God. That sometimes even when I can't see the growth, or it doesn't feel like anything is happening except awful things, that God is still there, nourishing that seed of hope and peace and faith and good things. And I wonder if you can see anything in that besides my mess. sometimes it's our friends who are like that little sprinkle of glitter in our lives, even in the messy, messy parts. Who are willing to just enter into it and be with us. Because as much as the disciples were locked away for fear that night, and probably many nights, they were together. And they continued to go out into the world and come back together and tell each other those stories about meeting a stranger on the road, about an empty tomb that didn't feel empty. So even though I'm here in an empty room, I know you're there. And that gives me hope. So thank you. I'm going to clean up my mess a little bit and get my things out for feast. Welcome back. I wonder what you found for your feast. Maybe you just need to pause the video for a little while longer to finish your work, or at least to clean up and be ready. We usually begin our feast time with a prayer. I wonder what you're thankful for today. I'm thankful for my health, for family and friends, for this beautiful space. I am very thankful that I live in a place that is at peace with their neighbors, for the most part. I mean, people get grumpy every now and then, but there's not a war being fought on our land. I wonder who you would pray for. Who's been weighing perhaps a little on your heart? Maybe a situation. Maybe somebody's getting sick or just getting over being sick. Perhaps somebody is trying to make plans to travel to see people they haven't seen for several years and not sure when or if they'll be able to. Perhaps you're praying for the people of Ukraine. The many people who have left in order to be safe. The families of those who don't know what's happened or when they'll be able to go back to their homes. The people of Russia. The people of the other countries around who struggle to know how best to put an end to the violence and build peace together. Perhaps we need to come to know our neighbors in new ways as well. All of this and so much more, God, we offer to you, knowing that our prayers are heard and that you strengthen us to be your prayer in this world. Amen. Well, I have a glass of water. Which is refreshing. I have a banana muffin that I made. Oh, and some blueberries. When I eat blueberries, I think of my granddaughter, as she really likes blueberries. And that makes me smile a little bit. And when I eat blueberries, I remember picking berries as a young girl. Our family would go out into the bush and they would set a big pail down in a clearing where the blueberries were thick. And then we each got a little pail tied on a rope around our waist to go and pick. And then we were supposed to fill our pail and come back and dump it into the big pail. And that's what my parents and my brothers did. But I tried a different strategy, and one time my mom noticed that I was going back and forth to the big pail an awful lot. And so she followed me. And I was filling my little pail out of the big pail and going back to my blueberry patch to eat. That worked when I was a kid. But it's not a really good lifestyle as an adult. But it is a reminder that still we need both to fill our pail and to make sure there's enough for other people too. We celebrated Earth Day not that long ago. And people have been thinking a little bit more about some of the things that we can do to be more gentle with the earth, or to consider the earth as a neighbor. And what do we need to do to look after that, or to be a good neighbor? Sometimes it might be a little bit like banana muffins, because banana muffins are made best with bananas that you really would rather think they should be thrown out. Perhaps we can get more creative about reusing or recycling things. Maybe we just even get more careful about how much we use. There's a big difference between what we want sometimes and what we actually need. I wonder what Thomas needed to be able to work with his doubt. It kind of says it pretty clearly in the story. Unless I can see and touch for myself, I won't believe. And sometimes that's an option for us. They say seeing is believing, or we want proof of something. But lots of times we don't. We have to take that leap of faith and trust. The believing is seeing. Maybe that's another way of coming to know Jesus in a new way. I wonder what new ways you're discovering. Come close to the holy and to know God's presence in your life. And before we know it, We might not all be all the way to Emmaus, but we are done our time together for today. So let's change the light together and watch what happens, because some people miss this part. Oof. Candle is so much bigger and heavier. I wonder if it will still change. Maybe the light is just that much bigger and stronger. Well, it still changes. It spreads out, gets thinner and thinner. Can hardly even smell it or see it anymore. But it's still there. To know God's presence even in the absence. And when we break bread together. And even in our doubts. God is with us. I hope you have a great week, whatever new discoveries it holds for you. And until we see one another again, God bless. Be well and look after one another.